Hello, America! JOC here with your Ranting Politics headline updates, where we are diving into today's most explosive political stories that you need to know about. Coming up, the Trump administration's Real ID rollout is causing a civil liberties showdown with some surprising Republican critics. Is this national security or Big Brother? We'll dive into the debate. Then, Elon Musk's SpaceX is eyeing a massive piece of the Golden Dome missile shield pie. We'll break down how the world's richest man might soon be protecting America's skies. Plus, Trump pumps the brakes on Netanyahu's Iran strike plans, pivoting to diplomacy instead of bombs. What's behind this surprising strategic shift? And New York AG Letitia James is passing the hat for campaign cash while fighting off serious mortgage fraud allegations from the feds. If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome to America's fastest-growing daily news rundown, designed specifically for your commute, run, or coffee time. Stick around for all this and more in your daily dose of unfiltered news and common sense commentary. This is Ranting Politics Headline Updates. Well, folks, it looks like the Real ID Act is finally coming home to roost after a 20-year delay, and not everyone in Trump's corner is thrilled about it. The administration's announcement that Real ID requirements will kick in on May 7th has sparked a rebellion from the libertarian wing of the Republican Party. Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky didn't mince words on social media, writing, "If you think Real ID is about election integrity, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Someone has lied to you, or you're engaged in wishful thinking." Ouch. That's going to leave a mark. Former VP candidate Sarah Palin jumped into the fray with a lengthy post questioning the timing and necessity of it all. She wrote, "Or what? Evidently, existing ID requirements for American citizens just aren't adequate now, so Big Brother is forcing us through more hoops for the right to travel within our own country." Palin pointedly asked, "Are you curious why its implementation is imperative now?" For those keeping score at home, the Real ID Act was passed way back in 2005 during the Bush administration as part of post-9/11 security measures. But for 2 decades, it's been stuck in implementation limbo, with deadline after deadline pushed back. Now the TSA says after May 7th, your regular state ID won't cut it for domestic air travel. You'll need that shiny new Real ID compliant card. Representative Massey wasn't done with his criticism, directly challenging the president by saying, "Real ID is a 2005 George Bush-era Patriot Act overreach that went completely unenforced until Trump got into office." He sarcastically added, "Let me guess, he's playing 4D chess and I should just go along with it?" Former presidential candidate Ron Paul called the program one of the greatest threats to American civil liberties in decades, while other state-level Republicans have been piling on, with some even calling it unconstitutional. According to Fox News reporting, these critics view Real ID as effectively instituting a form of mass surveillance that doesn't distinguish between law-abiding citizens and actual security threats, exactly the kind of big government intrusion many conservatives have historically opposed. The TSA isn't backing down from criticism, doubling down on their defense of Real ID by insisting it bolsters safety by making fraudulent IDs harder to forge, thwarting criminals and terrorists. According to TSA senior official Adam Stahl, this isn't about bureaucratic overreach. It's about plugging a critical security vulnerability. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security is framing the implementation as a crucial component of Trump's immigration strategy. In an internal memo obtained by Fox News Digital, DHS argues that Real ID closes the gaping vulnerabilities Biden's policies created, preventing criminals and potential terrorists from exploiting our aviation system, as seen during 9/11 when fraudulent IDs enabled attacks. Trump allies in Congress are pushing back against the conservative critics. Representative Mark Alford from Missouri didn't hold back, telling constituents, "The Real ID Act was passed way back in 2005, 20 years ago. It's about time everyone stopped dragging their feet. Quit scrolling through social media, quit complaining, get your info together, and get down to the DMV to get your Real ID." Administration defenders point out that they're simply executing a congressional mandate that's been on the books for 2 decades. They emphasize that the White House didn't create this requirement. They're just finally implementing what Congress authorized during the Bush administration. But this explanation isn't satisfying everyone. The Cato Institute's Patrick Eddington told Fox News Digital he's not aware of a single post-9/11 instance of an alleged or actual terrorist being apprehended, much less successfully boarding an airliner with false ID credentials, undermining the entire rationale for the program. Critics continue raising constitutional questions, arguing Real ID unfairly restricts Americans' freedom of movement between states. For now, though, the May 7th deadline stands, and Americans are rushing to DMVs nationwide to get compliant before their next flight. Well, folks, Elon Musk just can't seem to stay out of the headlines these days. According to reporting from the New York Post, the tech billionaire's SpaceX is now the frontrunner to build a key part of President Trump's ambitious Golden Dome missile defense shield. And he's not going it alone. SpaceX is teaming up with software maker Palantir and drone builder Anduril in what could be Silicon Valley's biggest defense contract victory ever. The proposed system is straight out of a sci-fi movie. We're talking about launching between 400 to over 1,000 satellites that would circle the globe to detect and track enemy missiles. But that's not all. The system would also include a separate fleet of 200 attack satellites armed with missiles or lasers to shoot down threats. Though sources say the SpaceX group likely won't be involved in the weaponized satellite portion, they're leaving that particular headache to someone else. What's really raising eyebrows in the Pentagon is SpaceX's unusual proposal to set up their part of Golden Dome as a subscription service. That's right. Instead of the government owning the system outright, they'd essentially be paying Musk and company for access to the technology. While this approach might help deploy the system faster by sidestepping some procurement red tape, it's got defense officials concerned about losing control over ongoing development and pricing. The cozy relationship between Musk and the Trump administration isn't going unnoticed either. One source described the talks as a departure from the usual acquisition process, noting there's pressure for defense officials to be sensitive and deferential to Elon Musk because of his role in the government. Let's not forget Musk donated over $250 million to help elect Trump and now serves as a special advisor heading up the Department of Government Efficiency. Retired Air Force General Terrence O'Shaughnessy, a top SpaceX advisor to Musk, has reportedly been leading the company's discussions with senior defense and intelligence leaders. Meanwhile, Space Force General Michael Guitlin has been weighing options on whether SpaceX should own and operate its part of the system, or if the government should maintain ownership. While SpaceX seems to have the inside track, the competition is far from over. The Pentagon has received interest from more than 180 companies eager to get a piece of what could ultimately become a project costing hundreds of billions of dollars. Traditional defense giants like Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and RTX are certainly not going to let Musk waltz away with the contract without a fight. Now, while SpaceX has some serious advantages in this race, particularly its proven launch capabilities and existing satellite infrastructure that could be repurposed for the shield, not everyone's convinced this grand plan is actually feasible. Laura Grego from the nonprofit Union of Concerned Scientists has raised significant doubts, pointing out that multiple studies have already concluded such a defense system is a bad idea, expensive, and vulnerable. One of the biggest technical challenges? An enemy could simply overwhelm the system by launching multiple weapons simultaneously. This would force the U.S. to deploy tens of thousands of satellites, far more than the proposed 1,000 or so, making the already astronomical costs completely unsustainable. Speaking of costs, experts estimate the overall price tag for Golden Dome could reach hundreds of billions of dollars. That's not pocket change, even for the federal government. The Pentagon has established several timelines for capabilities to be delivered, with the earliest components expected by early 2026 and others coming after 2030. Despite SpaceX's flashy proposal, traditional defense contractors aren't backing down. Industry stalwarts Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and RTX are expected to be major players in the bidding process. Lockheed Martin has already launched a marketing webpage showcasing their capabilities for the project. Meanwhile, defense startups like Epirus, Ursa Major, and Armada are also throwing their hats in the ring. The decision-making process is being closely watched by former private equity investor Steve Feinberg, now the Pentagon's number 2, who will likely have significant influence over who gets the contract. But even with all the optimism surrounding SpaceX's bid, Some insiders remain skeptical about whether these tech companies can actually deliver on such a complex and critical national security system. As one source bluntly put it to the New York Post, it remains to be seen whether SpaceX and these tech companies will be able to pull any of this off. They've never had to deliver on an entire system that the nation will need to rely on for its defense. In a dramatic diplomatic intervention reported by the New York Times, President Trump has apparently halted Israeli plans to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. According to administration officials cited in the report, Israel was preparing to launch military strikes against multiple Iranian nuclear targets as soon as this May. But those plans were shelved after Trump made it clear the U.S. would not support such action. This is a fascinating pivot in America's approach to Iran. Early in his term, Trump told Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu that Washington wouldn't back military strikes, effectively pulling the rug out from under Israel's hopes for American support. Without U.S. backing, which would have ensured both success of the strikes and protection from Iranian retaliation, Israel had little choice but to stand down. The reported goal of Israel's planned strikes was significant: to set back Iran's nuclear program by at least a year. But Trump's administration appears to have made a calculated decision to pursue diplomacy instead of military confrontation, even announcing nuclear discussions with Iran during an Oval Office meeting with Netanyahu. This marks a remarkable shift from Trump's first-term playbook, when he famously scrapped the Iran nuclear deal negotiated by his predecessor and authorized the strike that killed Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani. Now, the president says he plans to make a decision regarding Iran very quickly, following what officials described as promising nuclear talks in Oman. But the diplomatic road is proving bumpy. Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, demanded Iran stop and eliminate its nuclear enrichment and weaponization program, a position flatly rejected by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who declared Iran's uranium enrichment is not subject to negotiation. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt tried to thread the needle, telling reporters, "The maximum pressure campaign on Iran continues, but the president has made it clear he wants to see dialogue and discussion with Iran, while making his directive about Iran never being able to obtain nuclear weapons quite clear." Netanyahu, for his part, set a high bar for any potential nuclear deal, stating that it would only work if Tehran allowed signatories to go in, blow up the facilities, dismantle all the equipment, under American supervision with American execution. Despite these tensions, a second round of U.S.-Iran talks is scheduled for Saturday, with Trump reportedly convening a Situation Room meeting with top national security officials to discuss Iran's nuclear program ahead of these negotiations. As Newsweek reported, the administration seems determined to find a diplomatic solution, even as regional tensions remain at a dangerous tipping point. The diplomatic dance between Washington and Tehran has hit some serious roadblocks. Iran's flat rejection of U.S. demands to eliminate its uranium enrichment program threatens to derail negotiations before they gain any real momentum. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi made it crystal clear when he stated enrichment is not subject to negotiation, effectively drawing a red line that the Trump administration may find impossible to cross. This standoff puts the White House in a precarious position. On one hand, they're trying to maintain their maximum pressure campaign while simultaneously extending an olive branch through diplomatic channels. It's a delicate balancing act that has administration officials split between hawks pushing for military options and those advocating for continued dialogue. Meanwhile, the Israelis aren't exactly thrilled with this diplomatic pivot. Netanyahu's conditions for any nuclear deal are so stringent they appear designed to be rejected, demanding the ability to essentially dismantle Iran's nuclear infrastructure under American supervision. It's a position that seems calculated to scuttle talks rather than facilitate them. What makes this particularly intriguing is how it represents a complete reversal from Trump's first-term approach. The president who tore up the original Iran nuclear deal is now the one championing negotiations, while simultaneously warning Iran that any Houthi attacks in the Red Sea will be viewed as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran with dire consequences. With a second round of talks scheduled for Saturday, Trump has been huddling with his national security team in the Situation Room to strategize. The administration clearly wants a diplomatic win, but Iran's unwillingness to compromise on enrichment presents a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. The question now becomes, How much is each side willing to bend to avoid a military confrontation that neither may truly want? As these high-stakes negotiations continue, the clock is ticking on Iran's advancing nuclear capabilities, the very issue these talks are meant to address. Well, it looks like New York Attorney General Letitia James is passing the hat around at a rather awkward moment. The AG is hosting a swanky fundraiser next Tuesday, asking supporters to shell out anywhere from $500 to a whopping $18,000, the maximum legal contribution under New York law. Talk about timing. This money drive comes just days after she found herself in the crosshairs of a federal criminal referral from the Trump administration. The fundraiser, hosted at the home of progressive activists Rod Grozier and Rob Smith, features James's photo framed by a circular gay pride flag with a plea to supporters that Letitia James is fighting for our rights every single day. This is our opportunity to show Letitia that we have her back. But the elephant in the room is the serious allegations she's facing. Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Polt has accused James of falsely claiming a Norfolk, Virginia property as her principal residence in August 2023, while she was serving as New York's Attorney General. That's a potential problem since New York requires its attorneys general to actually, live in New York both before and during their time in office. According to documents reviewed by the New York Post, James signed paperwork declaring, "I intend to occupy this property as my principal residence." Yet neighbors in Virginia report they've never actually seen her at the property. Curious, right? The allegations don't stop there. James, who earns a $220,000 salary, is also accused of misrepresenting the number of units in a Brooklyn building she owns, claiming it has 4 when city records show it has 5. This isn't just a paperwork error. Buildings with 4 or fewer units qualify for better mortgage terms. The criminal referral suggests these discrepancies could amount to serious charges including wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, and making false statements to a financial institution. James's office has fired back, calling it weaponization of the federal government. But interestingly, her spokesman didn't specifically deny any of the allegations. While James courts campaign cash from supporters, these fraud claims could cast a long shadow over her 2026 re-election bid. That's all for today's Ranting Politics headline updates, and we've covered quite the range of stories today. From the Real ID controversy dividing conservatives, to Elon Musk potentially building Trump's missile shield, diplomatic tensions with Iran, and Letitia James fundraising while under scrutiny. As always, we aim to cut through the noise and deliver the unfiltered news you need without the partisan spin. America's best days are ahead, and staying informed is the first step toward making that happen. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us across all platforms. You can find us on X at RantingRP, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. For more content and our complete archive of episodes, visit rantingpolitics.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter for more in-depth analysis. This is JOC signing off, and thank you, our loyal listeners, for choosing Ranting Politics headline updates. We'll be back soon with the updates you need to navigate these interesting times. Remember, we don't align with a political party, we align with you, the American citizen. Until then, stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay free.